thought about what I've done. And I was hungry. So I went into 7-Eleven and I ordered a pizza. I called it the blood pizza. I finally had a certain level of self-respect. I finally made someone pay for all the I've been through. And so I took my blood pizza and I ate every bite of it and I enjoyed every bite of it. My only regret is that I hadn't killed 30 more sons of bitches like her.
On September 27th, 2017, Jennifer Fulford mysteriously vanished from the Winter Park, Florida home where she worked as a nanny. This quiet, affluent suburb of Orlando is best known for its golf courses, fancy restaurants, and jewelry shops. But on this day, a rare missing person case would soon turn into an unlikely murder investigation. And in time, people living in this small community would come to find out that Winter Park itself was the target of this vicious homicide.
911, what is your emergency?
I'm a Winter Park resident, and my nanny is missing. This is what's unusual, is her purse is here.
Okay.
Her car's gone, her purse is here, and nobody's heard anything from her since 11.
On the evening of September 27th, 2017, I received the call. Jennifer Fulford had gone missing. We immediately started sending out media release, trying to get the public involved.
Jennifer Fulford, she's 5 feet 6 inches tall, strawberry blonde hair, brown eyes. If you know anything about her disappearance, call Crime Line at 407.
The husband had learned of an ATM withdrawal that afternoon that she went missing. As soon as we started getting photos from the ATM and we showed it to her employer, we showed it to her husband, and nobody seemed to know who this person was, we knew there was probably foul play involved. I was really hoping that maybe she was kidnapped in a location and we could find her alive. We were able to locate her vehicle, station her in the parking lot, unoccupied. I immediately kind of got a knot in my stomach and said, yeah, nothing seems right in this.
Jennifer Fulford was an amazing human being. She had a wonderful husband. She had terrific children. She was someone who was taken from this world in a horrible way that nobody deserves.
She was dragged through the woods and then dumped into an open field, I would say about 20 feet from the roadway. And as we looked closer, it was obvious that some type of sharp object had been used in this crime.
She had zip ties around her wrists, behind her back. She had 12 stab wounds, and she had duct tape around her head, covering her nose and her mouth.
We now have a homicide, and this person is a true victim.
There's always media pressure. When somebody goes missing and you don't have an answer, then you find a body.
It was back behind these woods where the frantic 3-day search to find 56-year-old Jennifer Fulford ended. Detectives discovered her body yesterday afternoon.
Scott Edward Nelson had been incarcerated in one of our local jails, and one of the corrections officers recognized him as the person in the ATM photo. He was someone who wanted to make a name for himself, and he took specific actions in the belief that he would get media attention, and unfortunately, the media gave him exactly what he wanted.
Now a statewide manhunt underway for 53-year-old Scott Nelson. That's the man police are calling a person of interest.
Scott Edward Nelson was a drifter, and he had been in and out of prison. He had served time for bank robbery, so he had a really checkered past. Jennifer Fulford, this poor woman, didn't do anything wrong. She was just accosted while she was going about her day, and she was accosted by really a madman.
I'm Sergeant Sue Harris, my partner here.
Hey, Dr. Ryan.
All right, thanks.
You got water? You okay? I could use something to eat. I haven't eaten something to eat. Hungry? I'm starving. Do you have any idea why you think you may be here at all? No? No. Okay.
Where were you before you got to Orlando?
Prison.
Okay, so you got out of prison, you came right to Orlando?
Yes. I'm just curious to know where this is all headed.
Well, that's what we're getting to.
In the state of Florida, the death penalty should be reserved for the most heinous, atrocious types of cases. In this case, our office did elect to seek the death penalty.
Ms. Hicks, opening statement for the state.
Once the state has presented its case to you, there will be no doubt that this man went into Reed Berman's home, committing a burglary of a dwelling. He kidnapped her, he carjacked her, he robbed her, and lastly, her name was Jennifer Fulford, and he is guilty of her first-degree murder.
A prosecutor should never walk into a case believing that it is a slam dunk. No matter how strong a case you may have, you should always know that a jury, they might look at the evidence differently than you do.
The Bill of Rights, if you looked at it, you'll notice that it's kind of old and fragile looking, and that the writing's faded. But what's interesting is while this document is old and faded, that the principles that were espoused in that document stand strong today, particularly the right to be tried by a fair and impartial jury. Every person is presumed innocent until and unless the state proves that beyond all reasonable doubt.
When was the first time that you had any sort of inkling that something might be amiss with Jennifer?
I had a meeting that afternoon, and I walked out of the meeting around 4 o'clock, and I had received, I believe, a text from Oliver's mom asking who was picking up Oliver because he was in aftercare.
What was supposed to be the plan? What did you think was going to happen that day?
Jen was picking him up.
What did you do when you couldn't find Jennifer and you couldn't reach her?
I tried to call Robert, her husband. It went to voicemail. And then I called the 2 local hospitals.
Obviously, you had no luck finding her at any of the hospitals, correct?
Correct.
All right. So ultimately, did you call the Winter Park Police Department to report her missing?
Yes.
Winter Park is the Beverly Hills of Central Florida. That's where the rich people are. Unfortunately for Jennifer Fulford, wrong timing.
I knew what I was going to do. I needed money. Okay. And I did what I had to do to survive. Okay.
You kick a dog enough times, they tend to bite back.
State lawyers began presenting their evidence carefully and methodically. Even though they had a confession from the killer, they took nothing for granted, intending to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Scott Edward Nelson was responsible for the heinous murder of Jennifer Fulford.
Can you please tell us what your relationship was to Jennifer Fulford?
She was my wife.
How long had you been married?
7 years.
At some point, you were shown photographs, still shots from an ATM camera. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And did you recognize the person in the photos of the ATM?
No.
What kind of car did Jennifer drive?
A Hyundai Santa Fe.
Now, did that vehicle have any sort of active tracking device like OnStar or something like that on September 27th?
Yes, but it was not active.
Okay. And so you activated the tracking device on her car?
I did.
I was notified, I believe it was approximately maybe 11:30, 11:40 a.m. on the 28th that the vehicle was showing in the 1400 block of East Colonial Drive. At that time, I responded to that area to try and locate Ms. Fulford's vehicle.
When you went there, is this the Publix parking lot in Colonial Town?
Correct.
Once you arrived at that Publix location, did you locate a vehicle that matched the description that you were given?
I did.
The detectives notified me that they had recovered Mrs. Fulford's car, which they had towed to my vehicle bay. Inside that vehicle, we started uncovering evidence.
This is from the passenger side, same deal. What we're doing is photographing it so that you can see exactly what we're seeing when we first look inside that vehicle.
In the center there is an armrest. Did you open it?
I did.
When we opened the center console, inside was an empty beer bottle. So my first instinct was I called the detective, asked her, do you know if she is a beer drinker or this brand of beer? She was not. So that kind of started the ball rolling for us that maybe this was left behind by our suspect.
On the passenger side floorboard, there appears to be a tan object with some darker colored handles. How would you describe that object?
It's a Weekender bag. That is the name brand.
Were there items inside?
On top, you can see a white and colored towel.
What else was inside?
From my recollection, there was also a watch inside the bag itself.
Is this that watch with the scale?
It is.
You see in an ATM that he's wearing a very specific watch. And for us to recover that watch with her bloodstains and his bloodstains on there as well, all that evidence plays right into our case.
We have a search team put together in the area where her phone had last pinged for a significant amount of time. And it was a wooded area. And we wanted to do a good, thorough search to make sure she wasn't there. The helicopter unit had notified our officers on the ground that they had observed someone on the ground that appeared to be a body.
Was it located in Orange County?
Yes, ma'am, it was.
Where was it located?
On the south side of Fenton Street, just a few yards off of the road, and to the west of Apopka Island in a grassy field area.
I went to the scene, and within 2 feet, I was able to confirm, based on her shirt, shorts, distinct sneakers that she was wearing, that it was most likely Jennifer Fulford.
I am a resident of Winter Park. I mean, I did not know her, but now it's someone that's part of our community, not just a name on a piece of paper. It's very personal.
What did you observe when you first received the body of Jennifer Fulford?
Well, she was received to our office clothed, so we document that she had clothing on. She was also bound, meaning both her wrists and ankles were bound together. She had duct tape around part of her head. There were 4 stab wounds in the chest, 1 in the abdomen, and 2 in the back.
They initially did a search for the knife. They were not able to find the weapon. We had everything else. We had clothing, we had watch, we had her wallet, we had her purse, we had everything but the knife. It was a gut instinct that I felt that knife was on scene.
You're looking at where Miss Fulford was recovered.
Finally, the grass started laying down in this field. We were actually able to see the ground. So we brought out our whole entire department that was available, and we did a full search of that field. It was just by coincidence that our captain, who was excited to be out there to be a part of this search, finds the knife.
And that's exactly how we found it.
Let's move to the duct tape that was around her face. Was it tight enough to affect her ability to breathe?
I believe so, yes.
I've been doing this job for over 12 years, so I've seen a lot of different cases. And in that time, I've seen a lot of stab wounds. I've seen a lot of people come in bound by either duct tape or zip ties. I've seen people with their airways blocked by having something or foreign object wrapped around their nose or mouth. But it's very unique to have all those things in one individual or in one case.
What is your opinion, to a reasonable degree of medical certainty, about Jennifer Fulford's cause of death?
The cause of death is stab wounds and asphyxia.
Back on September 29th of 2017, did you see information put out to the public by the Winter Park Police Department of this individual using an ATM machine in connection with the disappearance of a woman by the name of Jennifer Fulford?
Yes.
Right. And upon seeing those images, did you determine that you knew who was in the picture?
Yes, I did.
Who was the person in the picture that you knew?
Scott Nelson.
That's So at this point, we had identified a potential suspect. The U.S. Marshals began looking in the area of Jacksonville.
Back on October 1st of 2017, were you assisting Central Florida law enforcement in locating a suspect by the name of Scott Nelson?
Yes.
All right, let's also go past Gower real quick just to make sure you don't have any weapons.
And were you able to locate Mr. Nelson on October 1st of 2017?
Yes.
Did he surrender?
Yes, he did.
Without further incident?
Yes, without incident.
Right.
Can I ask you? Yeah, ask away. Go ahead.
I'm under arrest.
Yes. And
What
we can get
are
into
my
that.
charges?
Okay. Right now we got some issues with some credit card use.
Will I have an attorney coming in here?
That's totally up to you. You tell me. I mean.
Oh yeah, no problem.
What would you like?
I think since I've been arrested, I think I'd like an attorney present to speak.
He was asked whether or not he owned any credit cards. At that point, the defendant didn't feel comfortable talking about any credit cards or being in the city of Winter Park, and he invoked his rights and asked to speak to his attorney. Because he was being held on the fraud charges and we had not charged him yet for a homicide, we had time. So we really hit the streets hard. We started collecting video surveillance around the area.
I think the number one piece of evidence that we had were videos showing him buying what we refer to as the murder supplies. Approximately 11 days prior to when he actually carried out his plan, he had gone to a Walmart and he had bought the duct tape, the zip ties, and the knife.
Around November 2017, Nelson starts writing letters. He is an avid letter writer and began writing letters to Detective Ferreira at the Orlando Police Department. And in his letter, he had advised that he was willing to talk to us about the Winter Park case. So we took a shot and we went out there to speak to him about a week later.
Your Honor, at this time, we would seek to publish the interview, which is 1 hour and 11 minutes in length.
It's crazy. Sure. And see these people in Winter Park, for instance, right? They have everything by the. They have beautiful homes and beautiful cars and golf courses, and after months and months of walking around the streets with nothing, I knew what I was going to do. All right. I needed money. Okay. And I did what I had to do to survive. Okay.
This was a very unique case in a lot of ways, and that confession was very unique in its detail and in its gruesomeness, in its complete lack of remorse.
Sometimes when people confess, you can see that there's some sort of humanity there. There was no humanity with Nelson.
I'm not going to let this bitch testify against me. So I killed her. I went through her heart.
With Detective Brian Ferreira on the stand, prosecution continued to play the taped audio confession of Scott Nelson from November 13th, 2017. And what jurors heard was a chilling step-by-step account of Jennifer Fulford's murder from the killer himself.
So this is your show. So what do you want to talk about? Well, as far as, what created this whole thing to be, I had been in Winter Park a few times. I noticed that it's a very affluent type of place. Yeah. It is. So I'm sitting there, and that night I've been walking around Winter Park. Of course, I have no money, and things started adding up. I had all I could take, and it just something happened to me that I just couldn't take it anymore. I noticed this one house, and it was happened to be 5 o'clock in the afternoon on the 26th. And I see Jennifer getting out of a vehicle with a young boy. Okay. And they go into the house. I made the determination at that point that I was going to do a home invasion on that house. I wanted to make an example of Winter Park.
I think the randomness of this case really surprised a lot of people. She was in a great neighborhood. She wasn't in a place that there was a lot of crime. So you don't expect this guy from the outside to come in and just to do something so brutal.
I mean, I'm not firing on all my cylinders, but the thing is, I mean, I have my faculties. I know the difference between right and wrong. Okay. I knew what I was doing was wrong. Okay. It isn't like some evil demon came out of me. It isn't that. It's just...
During his confession, he wanted to make it known that he was competent. There was nothing wrong with him. He was just upset. And my take was that he wanted to make everything about himself. He was a narcissist, and he wanted all the attention.
And I went out and I rang the doorbell, and Jennifer answered, and I said to her, I said, you know, you have a package on the doorstep here. Sure. And she said, yeah, I know. And she was looking at me a little odd, like, yeah, who are you? Why are you telling me this? And that's when I pushed the door and pushed it in. I pulled out the knife. Okay. And she jumped back 3 feet. Okay. Let out a scream, and then I pushed the door open, I shut it. And she didn't know what to do. And I gave her directions. I said, I'm not going to rape you, I'm not going to hurt you, I'm just here for the money. Okay. And she was not very helpful with my needs. Okay. Okay. I mean, whatever happened, you give the guy what he wants and let him leave. No.
Did that just make the situation worse?
Yeah, yes, it did. It made it a lot worse because I'm just trying to get some food, some money, and it didn't go well.
He was upset that his master plan was not going to work and that now he had to make other arrangements.
I said, do you have an ATM card? She said, yes, she did. I said, well, I got her PIN number and stuff. And I said, well, I'm going to get that. So I went upstairs for a second. I got the brown comforter off the bed. I wrapped her in the brown comforter and put her in the back of her own vehicle. I went to the ATM machine and I withdrew the $300. Now I have Jennifer in the back of the vehicle and I have $300, and now what do I do with her? Right. So now I'm driving, trying to find a place to find where I can put her. Right? She's, of course, and she's telling me, throughout this whole experience, even in the house, she says, I'm really afraid you're going to kill me. Right. Please don't kill me. Right. And I can really feel for her situation. Right. But in all reality, I'm having a hard time having compassion because I've been brutalized for so many years that I don't even know what compassion is anymore. Okay.
I do think at the time that a person's in deep psychic distress, such as Mr. Nelson, their basic need state can override their ability to have any empathy or compassion and lead to what I would call a very psychotic type of depression. He's very angry, and he was at a point where he just did not care.
So I finally found a place to put Jennifer. So I got her out of the vehicle, and she started getting louder and louder, so I put some duct tape. So then, she's pleading for her life, and things of such nature. So I duct taped her more, and then thought to myself, you know what? I'm not going to let this bitch testify against me, because they're going to give me the same amount of time. So I killed her. I put it through her heart.
Sometimes when people confess, you can see that they feel terrible about it. You can see that there's remorse. You can see that there's some sort of humanity there. There was no humanity with Nelson.
What about the knife? The knife, I threw that. Where? About 70 feet from the murder body. What did you do after that? I drove back to the Publix in West Colonial or East Colonial, one of the two. Okay. And I dropped the vehicle off. And I went back to Winter Park to get my belongings.
This is an innocent woman who did nothing wrong, who was brutally killed by Nelson, and he could talk about it with no emotion, with no remorse, no anger, no sadness, no anything. It's just what I did. And in some ways, he thought it was funny.
Then I sat there and I thought about what I've done, everything, and I was hungry. I went into 7-Eleven and I ordered a pizza. Well, I called it the blood pizza. Okay. I finally had a certain level of self-respect. I felt like good. I finally made someone pay for all I've been through. And so I took my blood pizza and I'm walking down the street while all these rich people are walking around buying jewelry and they're having their good life. And little did these know what I had to do for this friggin' pizza. And I ate that pizza, every bite of it, and I enjoyed every bite of it, and I really did. My only regret is that I hadn't killed 30 more sons of bitches like her, because I wish I had.
Sometimes I'll talk to people, their remorse stems from a real heartfelt remorse, a deep sobbing remorse. That I didn't perceive in Mr. Nelson.
I've never seen this level of crazy taking the stand. I've never seen this level of disconnect from reality.
Who killed Jennifer Fulford?
I did.
Jurors had heard the evidence, including Scott Nelson's shocking confession tape. But nothing could have prepared them for seeing the man himself take the stand.
Good afternoon, members of the jury.
Good afternoon.
Mr. Lark, please call the first witness for the defense.
At this time, Your Honor, we would call Scott Nelson.
Thank you.
Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
You may be seated.
Can you tell me who Julio Dominguez is?
Julio Dominguez is employed by the U.S. Department of Justice, United States Probation Office in Orlando, Florida.
And how is he related to this case?
Well, sir, he was my probation officer. I was on supervised release.
Okay, and what is the importance of his involvement in this case?
Well, sir, I'll be very frank with you. Jennifer Lynn Fulford would be alive today had it not been for Julio Dominguez.
Any reason for that statement, sir?
I think the world should know that. I mean, it's justice. The truth should be known, sir.
I don't believe I have any further questions.
Cross-examination.
Mr. Dominguez was a federal probation officer.
That's correct.
Okay. And Mr. Dominguez, according to your statement, is the individual responsible for Jennifer Fulford's death.
Yes.
Did Mr. Dominguez kill Jennifer Fulford?
No.
Who killed Jennifer Fulford?
I did.
All right.
I don't believe I will ever have another moment in a courtroom like I did when he was asked who killed Jennifer Fulford, and he said, I did. Where do you go from there? Do you just start talking about the facts? And his cross-examination, I think, perfectly demonstrated his personality. He wanted to talk about what he wanted to talk about.
You left unsaid why Mr. Dominguez is responsible for her death. Would you like to explain?
Yes.
Please do. What did Mr. Dominguez do to you?
He made it a point to create a situation with my employer/landlord, which is one of the same, and he got me thrown on the street. He lit a firecracker. He lit a bomb. He knew it, too, and they laugh about it after. That's what corrections does. That's what the government does. That's all they've ever done to me. They've turned me into an animal. Once you kick a dog enough times, they tend to bite back.
He didn't take any responsibility for doing it himself. He wasn't a monster until the state made him into a monster, and that was what he said on the stand.
So in September, when you went to the Walmart and acquired the knife and the duct tape and the zip ties, remember the zip ties?
Yeah. Never leave home without them.
Thank you for that quote.
Levity.
You knew at least 2 weeks before Jennifer Fulford's murder that somebody was going to pay for how you've been treated.
Yes, Your Honor.
Overruled.
That is very accurate.
Mr. Nelson is obviously expressing very sociopathic thoughts and actions. There's no doubt about that. And I think he basically was retaliating, very angry and resentful, and that what he did stemmed from his anger and his resentment.
Force your way into the house?
I don't recall any of this stuff right now, ma'am.
Did you have a knife with you when you went into the house?
Ma'am, you better check the confession. I mean, what more do you want? I mean, did I make it easy enough? It wasn't great police work that got me here. I gave it all to you.
Were you in this car?
No.
Never.
Ma'am, that was like 2 years ago. I don't know. I've never even seen that vehicle. I don't even know whose car that is. It's sitting, I don't know who that is. I don't know what you're talking about. What does this have to do with Julio Dominguez? I mean, if you want to sit here and talk to me and grill me for the next 3 hours, I'm not doing this. I came up here for one reason. Julio Dominguez is the reason Jennifer Lynn Fulford died. That's it. That's all I have to say.
Your Honor, would the court direct Mr. Nelson to answer the questions of all attorneys, not just his lawyer?
Well, need to.
My memory's getting real foggy right now. I'm sorry. I must need my medication.
Nelson, don't speak when I'm speaking. Do you understand, sir? Do you understand, sir?
Yes.
Did you have her duct taped at the ankles and zip tied behind her back while she was in the car?
I don't know. Check the medical examiner's report. They can't determine either.
Right. Well, you're the one who put the duct tape on the ankles, no question, right?
I don't know.
You're the one that put the zip ties on her wrists.
I don't know. You want the truth? I'll give you the truth. So help me God, I don't remember. I can't remember everything. There's something wrong with my brain.
Usually, the lawyers try to hide the rantings of a madman. You don't get to hear those in court a lot of the time. If they were hoping that somehow somebody on the jury would have compassion on him, well, he certainly didn't do himself any favors.
I've had cockroaches running over my body. I've been beaten. I've been raped. I've been everything in prison.
Yet, you did something that will potentially put you in prison for the rest of your life.
I couldn't help it.
As Scott Nelson's testimony continued, he became more agitated and uncooperative. But he wasn't finished yet. He would go on one more disturbing rant.
I can't remember everything. There's something wrong with my brain.
I've never seen this level of crazy taking the stand. I've never seen this level of disconnect from reality in front of me from somebody who's actually done something horrible. What you got was these rantings of a madman, and you got these ramblings that really didn't make a lot of sense.
Did you carry Jennifer Fulford from the back of the car through that patch of trees and vines to the open field? Or did you have her walk under her own power?
I think what was going on, ma'am, was that at that point, I was not in the right state of mind where, you know, that you just can't see things clearly and you just don't understand things. And you do things that you really don't want to do or understand why you do them. And that's where 25 years in custody has brought me. The penal system in America is a spectacular failure. Nothing works. But everyone that drives by a prison, they glance at it real quick and keep driving. They may shudder, oh, that's it, oh, God, and thank God I'm not there. And keep on a-rolling. Nobody cares. Nobody cares what goes on in there. They'll spend $30,000 a year to keep you in jail, and they won't give you a nickel to keep you out.
He is a man who believes he's been mistreated by the system, by everybody in his life. Jennifer Fulford died because this maniac wanted to air his grievances to the world.
They turned me into an animal. I've been beaten. I've been chained to beds for days at a rip. I've been locked in cells that are so stifling hot. I have flashbacks to this very day. I've had cockroaches running over my body. I've been beaten. I've been raped. I've been everything in prison.
And yet you did
And now I'm out in the free world, and this guy rips everything up.
Yet you did something that will potentially put you in prison for the rest of your life or on death row.
I couldn't help it.
So it was all about the money then? All about the money.
Isn't everything?
Is that a yes?
I had to eat. I'm a human being.
Is that a yes?
You're damn right it's yes.
We had a lot of evidence for this case, over 210 different items, ranging from swabs of car doors all the way down to the watch he was wearing in the ATM video. We've recovered it with bloodstains. But we had recovered everything.
There is no doubt that Mr. Nelson plotted, planned, premeditated this home invasion robbery, and that when Mrs. Fulford did not comply with his requests, he decided he had to get rid of her. That meant kill her.
What you see is that it was a decision that was made, and it was more as a result of the fact that she was crying out, and he panicked, and he killed her. He had always said he has killed her. Not back down from that. But it wasn't premeditated. It wasn't designed to do that.
I think the defense attorneys in this case did the absolute best with what they had. Mr. Lahr had a particularly difficult hill to climb because he had to try to convince the jury that we had not proven premeditation and that we had not proven any of the underlying felonies that would have constituted felony murder.
But when you wrap the duct tape around her head over and over again, you are intending to kill her. When you take a knife and you stab somebody, not once, not twice, not 3 times, not 4 times, not 5 times, not 6 times, 7 times, you want that person dead. That is premeditation.
There is one moment in a trial that means more than any other moment in the entire trial. And that moment in the trial is at the end of your rebuttal closing argument, when you say to the jury, convict this man, and you turn and you walk back to your counsel table. In that moment, you better be able to say to yourself, I did the absolute best job I could possibly have done to get justice for this victim. If you can't say that to yourself, please don't be a prosecutor.
How has your mental health been affected by your previous incarceration?
I am a homicidal maniac.
With Scott Nelson's brutal account of Jennifer Fulford's murder still fresh in their minds, jurors began deliberation. And after just a few hours, they reached a verdict.
Madam Clerk, please publish the verdicts.
2017 CF 15684, State of Florida versus Scott Nelson.
When I am waiting for a jury's verdict, I am more nervous than at any other part during the trial.
Verdict, count 1. We, the jury, find a defendant guilty of first-degree murder with a weapon as charged in the indictment.
Once we had gotten the guilty verdict in the guilt phase of the trial, we almost immediately moved into the sentencing phase of the trial because this was a case where the state had decided to seek the death penalty.
Mr. Nelson experienced 9 of the 10 adverse childhood experiences on the survey. How, in your opinion, has that affected his mental health or development?
Specifically, with regard to his mental health and development, I was contacted by the public defenders representing Scott Nelson in May of 2019. And basically, it was for helping out with the sentencing phase to specifically look at mitigation and what we call the ACEs, the aversive childhood experiences, to see how that would impact his behavior, his mental state, not mental state like insanity, but rather just his psychological state. I do believe that there is significant instances in which he was exposed to life-threatening events and perceived life-threatening events for himself as well as his mother and or other siblings, and that has basically led to his development of mental health symptoms, including the diagnosis of depression, as well as post-traumatic stress disorder.
From the records, can you tell why Mr. Nelson was often housed administratively for his protection?
He had issues with the white gangs, particularly the dirty white boys, who are a large group in the Federal Bureau of Prison System. And of course, if you make the dirty white boys mad, you've made a lot of other white groups mad. And then in turn, he had the Muslims who were mad at him. When you say the Muslims in the federal system, you're not normally referring to the Muslim religion, you're referring to the Muslim religion and the African-American inmates as a group. So I didn't see where he made the Hispanics mad, but he had everybody else mad at him. He stayed in the special housing unit because he was one of those inmates, and I'm trying to be nice here, he couldn't keep his mouth shut.
I'm gonna, Mr. Nelson.
Shackling like an idiot.
Mr. Nelson.
Bastardizing the due process of this trial.
Mr. Nelson, you have attorneys. You need to take a moment to talk with your attorneys.
I would demand you that we mistrial this trial right now. You call me a racist, I'm a black terrorist. Mistrial now. When do I get to testify?
Mr. Nelson.
Let out.
Mr. Nelson. Mr. Nelson. Do I have your attention? Okay.
How has your mental health been affected by your previous incarceration?
I am a homicidal maniac.
Judge, I don't have any other questions.
Cross-examination.
The jury voted, and in the state of Florida, we have to have a unanimous verdict in favor of death. So 12 jurors have to all vote in favor of death.
We, the jury, unanimously find that Scott Edward Nelson should be sentenced to death. No. Dated this 11th day of July 2019 in Orlando, Orange County, Florida, signed by the foreperson. In accordance with the jury's verdict, the court sentences the defendant to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole on count 1 of the indictment.
This was a brutal murder with a random victim. I thought if there was ever a case where the death penalty was warranted, this was the case. But it didn't work out that way. There was one holdout juror who wasn't ready to vote for death, and so we're looking at life in prison.
Giving him the death penalty probably wouldn't have given closure to the family. I believe justice was served. In his mind, he probably wanted the death penalty. So I'm good with what the courts gave him.
We don't live in Mayberry anymore. And we have to be aware of our surroundings. And I think the biggest takeaway from this case is don't open your front door unless you know who's on the other side of that door.
On July 11th, 2019, Judge Keith White sentenced Scott Edward Nelson to life in prison. He's currently serving time in the Walton Correctional Institution in Defuniak Springs, Florida. I'm Ashley Banfield. Thanks for watching.